So many good books. Fina here from Fina Reads. Hello everyone and welcome back to my 2021. The year's already messed up in my head. Oh my goodness. 2021 review series. This video is particularly to talk about my top books in any other genre besides fantasy and sci-fi. I've already talked about my favorite fantasy and sci-fi books, and now I want to talk about the other genres that I read. No worries, it's not going to be a top 5 for all the different genres, because there's so much different things that I've read, as you might have seen in my stats video if you watched that I wanted to cover at least my favorite of every genre. Some have a runner-up, some don't. So the categories that we're talking about are thriller, historical fiction, general fiction, classics, horror, romance, and non-fiction. And we're starting off with thriller because who doesn't need a good thrill? Whoa, this was bad. Let's just move on. For the thriller category, it has to be The Wife Stalker. I love Liv Constantine. It's an author pair. I think they're sisters. I'm not 100% sure. But I love this book. I've read other books from them before I read this one. But this one completely captivated me. And I was sitting there, after I closed the book, I was sitting there like, what the hell just happened? I did not see this twist coming. I was literally yelling when I was reading the twist. And I don't think that ever happened to me before, that I've read a thriller or a crime or mystery novel where I got to the twist and I was so thrown off by it. I was like, I did not see this coming. It's an easy read, right? Thrillers are usually not super complex, so it's definitely more an entertainment easy read. But from the thrillers that I've read throughout my life, this is definitely, generally speaking, one of my favorite and definitely my number one for this year. Genre number 2 I want to talk about is historical fiction. And I've read a few books, but a lot of them by the same author. But the one that really stood out for me is the trilogy with the books are being Sons of Rome, Masters of Rome, and Gods of Rome. Gods of Rome came out this year. So this one was my first Roman-inspired historical fiction, and I loved it. Not for the historical fiction aspect, but for the character work throughout the entire series. And my favorite of the two is between Sons of Rome and Masters of Rome. Gods of Rome was a little dip for me at the end. It was still a good book. I just thought it was a little bit too gory for it to be a favorite, because that's not why I liked the series. But I think it has to be Sons of Rome, which is the first book of the series, because that's where everything gets introduced and you really get to know the characters. And again, that character work is incredible in that series. It's the description of the two main POVs that it switches up between in the books as well. It's just so well done. I enjoyed every moment with them. Them growing up in the first book, them learning about the heritage and where they have to go, the decisions they are making, how they are becoming friends. So impressive on how well written it was, how well developed that those characters were. Yeah, so definitely my top 1. It has to be my top 1 when it comes to historical fiction. Category number 3 is a new one for me this year, and that is horror. Horror is a new genre that I actively tried reading in, and I got a lot of great recommendations from like Leslie from The Nerdy Narrative and Jake from The Bookish Drummer, who recommended some really great authors throughout the year. And that is the first category where I had a hard time deciding which one should be my number 1. So I'm starting with the runner-up. The runner-up has to be Nightfall by Daniel Burnett, which is the first book in the Nightmareland Chronicles. And I saw it on a couple of booktuber channels. Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads talked about it, Leslie talked about it, and a couple of others. And the one thing that really stood out to me are the covers. So I eventually bought it literally just for the cover to have it here, but then I saw that it is kind of small, and then I thought I just should give it a try, and thank goodness I did. What this book is about is the characters are waking up and the sun is gone. It's the next morning of a day and the sun is just gone, and we don't really learn what's happening in book 1, but what we learn is what it does to people, and they are going completely nuts. People don't know what they're doing anymore. All of a sudden they're just standing on the lawn and staring into the emptiness and like weird things like that. But some characters keep it together and they are traveling around the city, meet each other and this kind of things. I loved how he phrased, or how he set up the entire setting, how he phrased his sentences, how he described what was happening. So it was definitely a really fun ride, and I am excited about continuing reading it, but I'm also a bit scared. And then book 1 has to be Baby Teeth. And the reason why I loved it so much is I love it when I can be in people's heads. And this is one of those books where you're in the head of the daughter and the mother, and you're trying to figure out, why is the daughter such a brat? Why is she making her mom's life so difficult, and what is going on in the mom's head while all of these things are happening? And it's not just that the girl is a brat, it's escalating really quickly into things where, like, okay, she's trying to murder her mother right now. It's so messed up, and I loved every minute of it. And I was sitting there like, oh yeah, yet another reason why I don't have children. Oh my goodness. I had so much fun reading it. It was such a blast. And it sounds weird saying it this way because it is not meant to be, getting you excited. I'm actually a little bit worried about myself right now, but it was such a good read. Zoe Stage's writing is incredible. I cannot wait to read. Like, she has to come out with new books so I can read more, because I've read all of her books at this point. And I mean, yeah, number 1, horror. Let's move into a little bit, more settled genre, which would be nonfiction. I surprisingly read quite a bit nonfiction this year, starting with the runner-up, which is Cultish. It's a book about language, essentially. Yes, she focuses on cults and how cults are becoming so successful. And she's not just saying cult as in Scientology, but also cults like SoulCycle or, multi-marketing schemes. No, there's a term for that. Those marketing pyramid schemes. First of all, this book was incredibly informative to just learn more about actual cults like Scientology and others that fall into that category, but also her thoughts on how they're luring in the members. And it comes down to language and how language is used. And she drew some analogies to propaganda and how that same language is used by CEOs and politicians and whatnot. And I found it just incredibly interesting. My number 1 has to go to Katie Martin's The Chancellor, though. This is a biography that I wanted to read because I was just interested in Angela Merkel as a leader, and I wanted to just learn more about her, how she led the country, how she managed to maneuver all the things that were thrown at her. She didn't have easy 16 years. And what I got was not just a biography, but a summary of the world happenings of the last 16 years. I learned more about my own history. She grew up in East Germany like I did. I learned more about my own heritage, and I found that so fascinating that I devoured this book, and I really did not think this would happen. I'm so fascinated by her life. And what makes it even more fascinating, I actually don't align with the party that she belonged to. But after reading this book, there were so many things where I was like, hey, I think you did a really incredible job leading the country through the issues that were thrown at you. Alrighty, let's get to some more lightheartedness, romance. First, let's talk about the runner-up. And the runner-up would be the Love Hypothesis, whatever, this book. I still cannot pronounce the title. Seriously. Miss Ellie Hazelwood, can you please do not such tongue breaker titles next time? That would be great. Anyway, and that's a book I just read recently. This was definitely my favorite easy entertainment type romance. It has a fake dating trope, which I realized I really enjoy. And it was just, quirky. There were some cringeworthy moments in there, like in all romances, but this was definitely one of those that I really enjoyed. And I actually had a hard time deciding between this and the other that I will talk about in a second. The reason why this is the runner-up is it was a little bit too young at times. So the main character is, I think, in her mid-20s, and she makes mid-20 decisions, which is fine. When you're in your 20s, you have to live your life, you have to experiment and all that kind of stuff because you're young enough to do that at that time. But that's why it was not 100% the book that I enjoyed. But besides that, it was highly entertaining, and I really loved everything about it. Number 1, and the reason why it is number 1 is because it's a bit more a grown-up adult romance, if you will, and that's The Little Cafe in Copenhagen, which I actually read in German. Very similar to the book that I cannot pronounce. really entertaining love story. This time it is about a journalist who's going to Sweden, Denmark, I think, Copenhagen. Yeah, of course, it is Denmark. Oh, journalist is going to Denmark to learn more about a new client, and she's bringing 5 other journalists with her that are supposed to write about this new client and his new endeavor. And it's just about that journey and all the struggles she has to deal with because she needs to organize all of these journalists and make sure they are actually showing up to all the events that she and her client has planned. And it was just so entertaining. First of all, Denmark is a great country and Copenhagen is a really beautiful city. And I love those aspects of the Danish lifestyle in the book. And then the romance was just adorable. And it was so heartwarming. Just hands down a really great romance, and I definitely want to continue in that series. Last category is fiction/classic. Again, let's talk about the runner-up first. That is a book that I read really early in the year that I actually discovered through Amazon First Reads. If you don't know what Amazon First Reads is, it's a perk that you get by being a Prime member. Every month you can pick one out of, I think, 6 or 7 free ebooks, and they are early releases. They are actually released the next month, but you get early access for free to one of them. And as far as I know, you can keep them. I mean, I don't know. I've never canceled my Prime membership, so... The Ardent Swarm is my runner-up, and that was the January Amazon First Reads pick. And it is about the time where Tunisia is having a change in leadership. And I'm saying this very carefully because I have zero experience with the history of Tunisia. I learned more through this book, and then I did some research afterward, but I'm still not an expert. So from what I understand, it is their move into democracy, but as it is always... is, you know, when you switch regimes or when you switch the style of how your country is run, there are others coming in and trying to take over and disrupt everything, and it's always a big mess. So Tunisia was in this big mess in the 2010 timeframe. Again, vague. It's probably, you know, maybe later after. Feel free, if you know, feel free to put 2 in the comments and clarify those specific areas. But what I really liked about this book is he is using the life of a beekeeper in Tunisia as an analogy for what was happening in the broader region. And yes, while he's talking on the site a little bit about these aspects, he is not going in depth, but rather he is using the fact that his bees are being attacked by killer bees that came into the country through, I don't know, tourists or trade with other countries that are attacking his bees. He's using this as an analogy for what happened in the country. And I thought it was really fascinating. It was incredibly well done. Number 1, and the reason why I said fiction/classics, because this falls into both categories, is The Handmaid's Tale. I read this year, and as you can see, I loved it so much that I got the Folio Society edition. And that was actually my Christmas presents for my parents, which I'm really excited about because this edition is beautiful. It's my first Folio Society, and I had no idea that they are that gorgeous. Handmaid's Tale blew me away. I am in love with Margaret Atwood. That's the second book I've read from her. I read The Heart Goes Last, I think last year or the year before. And I think she has an incredible way of talking about actual issues. And just this thought-provoking way of hers, yeah, it completely blew me away. And it made me think, it made me just contemplate what this would mean in a society like ours and how easy we could actually end up in a situation like this. So anyway, I enjoyed it and I thought it was incredibly well done. Those are my top books in the 6 other genres besides fantasy and sci-fi that I read throughout 2021. What did you think about my picks? Is there anything that stood out for you? What are some of your favorite books that you've read across 2021 in these genres? And then I hope I see you soon with my next video. Till then, have a great rest of your day. Bye.